I take immense pleasure to welcome you all in today's webinar series on the occasion of Cons Endo Day. It's my honor to introduce our esteemed speaker, Dr. Sarita Bhandari ma'am, who had graciously accepted our invitation to share her expertise with us today on the topic of case selection and diagnosis. Dr. Sarita ma'am serves as an assistant professor in the Department of Conservative Dentistry and Endodontics at Savita Dental College and Hospital at Chennai. A distinguished diplomate of Indian Board of Endodontics, she has been invited at various national as well as international platforms. Her exceptional academic and clinical prowess has earned her several prestigious awards, including her recognition during her postgraduate studies and beyond so. Her expertise and contribution to the field of endodontics have made her a respected name in the dental community. To further ado, I would like you all to please join me in welcoming Dr. Sarita ma'am in the virtual stage. Ma'am, please carry on with the session.
Am I audible?
Uh, Hello.
Am I audible?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, you are audible. Hello. I think there's some technical issue. Please wait for a minute.
Am I audible to everyone? So this is Dr. Sarita. Dr. Vishaka has given already a small brief about me. So here's a small introduction about me. I'm a faculty in Savita Dental College. I'm working here as an assistant professor. So today, on the occasion of Cons Endo Day, I have selected my topic as case selection and diagnosis. This is one of my favorite topics, and I would say it is one of the most important topic as a clinician and as a dentist. So first of all, why I have selected this topic, why it is so important for all of us. So just imagine yourself going to a restaurant and you have everything over there. Like you have a very good ambience, you have great chefs over there. But here the thing is the chef, he can make all kind of cuisines, all worldwide cuisines he can make. But the catch here is he can only make non-vegetarian food and you are a vegetarian. So does it make any sense for you? A vegetarian can never eat any non-vegetarian food. So just imagine yourself going to a clinic, you are a periodontist or you belong to some other specialty, and a case comes to you which doesn't belong to your specialty. So does it make any sense? Until unless you have a proper clinical diagnosis, you can't come to a conclusion what can be the treatment. So for knowing the treatment, for knowing the proper prognosis, you should always have the proper knowledge about the case, what you are going to deal with. Don't jump into any kind of conclusion without knowing the history of the case, without knowing what is the diagnosis, what actually that tooth requires, whether that tooth has to go for an endodontic treatment also or not. So starting with how we can go for a good case selection so that we can go for a good prognosis and a proper outcome of the treatment. First thing that we should start with is our clinical examination. So for clinic examination, whenever the patient comes to you, the very first thing that we should consider is history. If we always say that whenever you are talking to the patient, your patient himself is going to give you the diagnosis. So just talk to the patient, just try to take out the diagnosis from the patient himself. Just see to it which tooth it is, what tooth he has pain in. You ask the tooth, you ask the patient, which tooth you are having pain in. There might be, in some patients, we see there are multiple number of caries are there. So first come to a conclusion, what is the tooth of interest? Don't directly jump like, okay, this teeth is there, it has caries, the patient is telling me, okay, I have pain in my mandibular jaw. So, okay, just start with the RCT, just see a radiograph and just start with the RCT. No, never, ever, ever do that. So first thing is just see to it which tooth requires the treatment. The patient has come with a complaint of pain. The patient should leave the clinic with the treatment of that pain. Then you have to ask the patient for how long that pain is there for, like for how long you had the pain. So always know what is the duration of the pain. Like it is from the months, from 2 days, 3 days. There are cases where patient will eat something hard. It is not even the endo case. It might be patient just ate something hard and there is some periodontal problem, some occlusal trauma or anything happened to the patient, and patient is right now he's having pain. So don't directly jump for endodontic treatment. Just listen to the patient and see from how long the patient is having the pain. Then always ask the patient what type of pain you are having. Is it lingering pain? Is it dull pain? Is it sharp pain? Always ask, always take a proper history of the pain. What kind of pain, what type of pain he is having. Then ask for the duration of the pain, from how long the pain is there. For whenever some pain is there, for how long the pain is sustaining for you. Is it for the 5 seconds, 10 seconds? You just listen to the patient. You just ask him, okay, for how long your pain is there. The patient himself is going to tell you like, from past 2 days, I am having pain. Whenever the pain is there, I'm not able to bite anything from the teeth. Whole night I had pain. You have to ask the patient, what is the duration of the pain? Then when it pains, is it there is any specific condition when you are having pain? Is it something when it is paining? Is it something when you are eating something sweet, that time you are having pain, that time you are facing pain? Is it when you are having some hot tea or coffee, that time you are having pain? Always ask your patient when it is paining. Then you ask the patient about the aggravating factors. You ask the patient, what is aggravating the pain? When you are having hot tea, coffee, or is it sweet or cold? So this itself is going to give you a diagnosis of reversible pulpitis or irreversible pulpitis. Always ask the patient about the aggravating factors and the relieving factors. Now, after that, the second step is always do a palpation and percussion for the patient. The first thing is palpation. Use your index finger, your thumb, just palpate the soft tissue of the patient and just check whether is there any swelling is there, any fluctuant, any soft swelling is there, any hard bound swelling is there. Just check just palpate the the region of interest and check while doing the palpation, patient is having pain or not. If there is a swelling, just check whether it is fluctuant or it is hard. Then you can go for a percussion. Don't try your mouth mirrors or any hand instrument for percussing. What you can do is just take your index finger, just press the tooth and just check it whether it is having pain or not. So just don't don't percuss your you don't percuss your tooth with the help of your hand mirror or your mouth mirror or any other hand instrument. Just check it with the help of your finger, index finger. That much is sufficient. Then the next diagnostic aid, the additional diagnostic aids that you can have in your clinic is your EPT or a cold test. So for your EPT, you can always you can have your EPT or your cold test and all. So these tests you can always use it for your coming to your final conclusions. But these are all your vital. Actually, the term is sensibility test. It's not vitality test. Okay. So sensibility means we are just checking the nerve tissue. We are not checking the blood supply. So always remember, whenever we are doing, okay, I got something like my slide is not changing. Uh, I will try to reshare it. Just let me know if now is it. Okay. So we were talking about the diagnostic aids. So you should always have some good additional diagnostic aids in your clinic. So first of all, you should always have a EPT, or there should be something for your cold test or heat test. Okay. So these tests we call it as vitality test, which is actually a wrong term. The right term for these one has to be sensibility test. We are not checking the vitality actually. We are not checking the blood supply. Whenever some inflammation is there, whenever some kind of inflammation is there, the first tissue that is going to get damaged is our blood vessels. But here we are checking the nerve supply. That's why it is called a sensibility test. So in our colleges, if any practitioner is there or any academician is there, so now we have changed this term. Now we no longer we call these as pulp vitality test. We call all these tests as pulp sensibility test. So if at all, if you want to check the blood supply, then we have something called as laser Doppler flowmetry, and we have something called as pulp oximetry. So whenever you want to, in trauma cases or in some cases, if you want to check the blood supply of the tooth, then we have to go for a laser Doppler flowmetry or pulp oximetry. So after having a partial diagnosis, for confirming the diagnosis, we have something called as radiographical examination. For radiographical examination, we use in our clinics, we have RVGs. And in some clinics, we have a conventional IOPs also, conventional radiographs as well. So see, here what all we have to look for is, whenever you are starting with a radiographical diagnosis, your RVGs or your any IOPs, just start from one side, from your crown structure to the periapical region. In this case, if you will see, you can just see the caries portion here. You can always check for the radiolucency that is present in the coronal portion. You can always check for the caries involving enamel, dentine, and pulp, whether it is approaching pulp or not. Then you can just check for the root section, and you can check for the periapical region. Okay, whether there is any pedal winding is there or not, any destruction of this pedal winding is there or not. You can just see if any bone resorption is there or any tooth resorption is there. You can just check for all these changes in your IOPs or in your RVGs or in conventional IOPs. So, but the only limitation of this RVG, most of the 80 to 90% of cases, we can just come with a final diagnosis with these RVGs. But the only limitation these have is it is a two-dimensional image. It is not a three-dimensional image. For some cases, like sometimes some re-RCT cases are there. So in re-RCT cases, two-dimensional images are hardly going to give any kind of conclusion. So for in such cases, we have to go for something called a CBCT. Okay, in CBCT, in this case, if you can see, it is a three-dimensional image. So here I can see there is a bone resorption also. Here's a complete loss of bone structure also. So here I can see in the vertical section, I can see here there is a kind of a radiolucency is there. There's some kind of bone loss is there. Here I can see some of my root portion is also been resorbed. Then I can also see the shape of my canal. If you can see in the second image, I can see there is a shape. There is some changes in the shape of the canal as well. So here I can see this is the three-dimensional image in CBCT. So here I can completely see the bone loss and the root also, some amount of root is also resorbed here. So the additional informations that you can look for, it all only comes with your CBCT. So CBCT is not advised for each and every case, but as and when required, you can always go for a CBCT as well. Okay, these are the diagnostic possibilities according to your American Association of Endodontics 2008. Now we have a different terminologies. Now we don't use the term chronic irreversible pulpitis. We have something called as symptomatic irreversible pulpitis and asymptomatic irreversible pulpitis according to the symptoms that the patient has given and according to our clinical accessibility. Then for periapical diagnosis also, there is something called as asymptomatic and symptomatic apical periodontitis. You all can go back home. I'm not going to get into deep of all these things. You can just go back and you can just check for the AEE 2008 classification. So this is something for pulpal and periapical diagnosis. You can actually these days we are using these kind of terms, these terms. So in short, in summary, how you have to go for a diagnosis, how we come to a conclusion and how we are coming for the treatment is first, just listen to the patient, take the chief complaint, listen to the patient, take a good medical and dental history, then go for the the clinical examination, then for confirmation, go for the radiographical diagnosis. It can be anything, whether you want a conventional radiograph, you want a RVG or CBCT as and when required. Then come to a final diagnosis, what has to be done, and then go for a final treatment. Okay. So now, what are the other factors that are going to play a major role in your case selection? This is all about diagnosis. So what are the other factors that come into play when we talk about the case selection? The first and foremost thing, I'm an endodontist, but still the first and foremost thing that I will tell you is the periodontal aspect. Always respect your periodontium. Periodontium is a supporting tissue of your tooth. So always respect your periodontium. If at all you want to check anything, the first instrument that you want to put inside the patient's mouth, it has to be a periodontal probe. Okay, so if you will see this IOPA, just look for this premolar. Can you see the adjacent portion, this adjacent bone? Can you see some kind of resorption is there? Otherwise, if you see, the patient came with a history of from 5 years, he got this 5 years back, he got this root canal treatment done, this crown done, everything looks perfect. Endodontically, this is fine. Yes, it is completely fine. Root canal is quite okay in this case. Crown structure, your prosthodontic part is also good. But if you will see here in this case, there is some kind of radiolucency here. So the first instrument that you have to use is your periodontal probe, and always do walking of the probe. So here on clinical examination, when we checked this tooth with this periodontal probe, there was a 9 mm pocket there. So it indicates there might be a vertical root fracture there. So we went for a CBCT and yes, it was confirmed like yes, there is a vertical root fracture. So it has to go for an extraction. So there is a complete endo-perio classification is there. So in this classification also, I want to majorly talk about the combined perioendo lesions. In combined perioendo lesions, if you see this case, just see to this case, in this radiograph, clinically, the gingiva is normal. Clinically, there is no caries. In this radiograph also, you can't appreciate any caries or anything present in relation to this tooth. But on radiograph, if you will see, it is completely the bone loss is there in one root. So always respect your periodontium, check for the periodontal findings as well. And in such cases, never hesitate to take an opinion from the periodontist. You can do a very good root canal treatment, but without periodontium, without the bone support, it is useless. So always go for a periodontal opinion in perioendo cases. This is a perioendo case. The initiation of the infection is periodontium, and then it has involved the endodontic part. So always take a perio opinion in such cases. In such cases, if you are not taking a perio opinion, you are doing a very good RCT also, it's definitely going to fail. So better take a perio opinion first and then initiate your RCT. In this case, this is the endoperio lesion. If you will see this case, this molar, the coronal structure is completely gone. Here, the completely caries is there, which are now approaching pulp. And because of this pulpal involvement, now this percussion involvement and the periodontal bone loss is also there. In such cases, now we know the cause of infection is pulpal. So just go for a root canal treatment. There is no need of going for the perio opinion. You can directly start with the endo and you can end up with very good results just by doing endo in this case. In these cases, there is no need of going for a periodontal opinion. In such cases, you can yourself initiate a RCT and you will get a very good result. Then the second thing that I want to talk about is the endodontic aspect. Whenever you are selecting any case, always check for the endodontic aspect. See, in this IOPA, the first IOPA, if you will see this 2-1, just check for the canal configuration. There's a complete canal obliteration in this one. The canal is completely calcified. In endo, we always say that there is nothing called as completely calcified canal, but these cases has to be treated or dealt by endodontist only, because this kind of cases, the treatment is obviously root canal treatment, but it requires dynamic navigation and some higher quality treatments. So such treatments experts can only do. So better you should go for a expert opinion and you should go for a endodontic opinion. In this case, if you will see this 7, can you just see the anatomy? Just see the anatomy of this case. The canal is completely curved. For such kind of cases also, you should always see for the endodontic aspect also, whether you can deal with this case clinically or not. See, the shape of the canal is completely curved. Here also there's a dilastrated premolar. So whenever you are selecting your case, just check for the first thing and foremost thing is periodontal aspect. Then check for the endodontic aspect as well. Then in this case, if you will see, there is no carious involvement in this tooth. But in this case, there is a periodontal widening and there is a slight amount of bone resorption also there. If you will see, if you will see this portion, the CEJ portion, can you see there is slight amount of bone loss in this adjacent area also? There is a vertical bone loss in this area. So according to me, there are chances of vertical fracture in such cases. So, and there is I want to elaborate this term also. There is a term that is called as cracked tooth syndrome, and there is a term that is root fractures. So what is the difference between a cracked tooth syndrome and root fracture? So your vertical root fracture, it is going to start from the apex to CEJ. When you talk about your cracked tooth syndrome, it is always going to start from the coronal portion to the root. So if it is a vertical root fracture, always go for an extraction because the prognosis is already very, very poor. So you can go for an extraction at that very moment. If it is a case of cracked tooth syndrome, you can just use you can invest on a good transient eliminating device and you can just check for the cracks. This is the cracked tooth syndrome. If you can't invest in a very expensive transient elimination device, you can just use the light cure unit itself, just from the posterior, from the backside of your tooth. You can pass the light and you can see the enamel cracks in this case. So such cases, yes, you can deal with the endodontic treatment, and after that you can give a good restoration for such cases. But for your vertical root fractures, yes, you have to go for an extraction. Don't even try for attempting it. There are like studies going on which says that you can extract it, you can again reimplant it, but still it is still under process, it is still under research. So don't attempt RCTs for your vertical root fractures. Then comes a very important point, that is restorative aspect. It's just doing a blind root canal treatment is not going to end up anywhere if you have not done a good restorative treatment. Okay, first of just before starting the case, always inspect whether you can restoratively, whether you can manage it or not. See, in this case, if you will see, there is subgingival caries, but it is just involving the distal portion of this tooth. Okay, so managing this tooth, there's something called as deep marginal elevation. So just go for a crown lengthening at this portion, and then a good isolation. And then finally, you can give a good, after endo treatment, you can just give a very good restoration, and you can, obviously, you can increase the life of the tooth. But if the restorative margins are very poor, please don't go about it. See, in this case, you can see there is no attached gingiva. Even a good periodontist can also not help this tooth because there is no attached gingiva left in this case. So this tooth has to go for extraction. You should always consider the restorative aspect as well for the tooth. Whether after root canal treatment, it's not, there are few canals, you can just, you just have to clean it, just fill it with GP. That is not endo. For endo, restoration also is a part of endo. So after your root canal treatment, after your good root canal, it has to be restorable. The fourth one, a very neglected aspect, that is occlusion. So most of us, including me, till I was a UG, I never knew the importance of articulating paper. So in market, there are two kinds of articulating paper is there, red and blue. It's not based upon the color selection or the my favorite color or any choice. There is some logic behind it. The blue one is for your centric relation, to note, you check your centric relation. The red one is for checking your eccentric relation. So occlusion is something that you should always consider. See, in this case, if you will see this blue dots, if you can see, these are the high contact points. There is a heavy occlusal forces on this area. The patient came with a complaint of pain and tenderness on percussion was positive. But this is not a root canal treatment. Don't directly jump for a root canal treatment. In this case, if you will see, these portions, because of the heavy occlusal contact, because of the heavy occlusal contact, the pain was there. Once you will relieve these points, the pain will be completely gone. So always look for the occlusal aspect as well. Then there comes anatomy. For your mandibular molars or your mandibular teeth, always see the anatomy, the nearby anatomical structures as well. In this case, if you will see, this is the mandibular canal, which is very near to this molars. So if you want to do a root canal treatment for this 8, always consider there is a mandibular canal, which is lying just very near to this tooth. So whenever you are doing your working indetermination or you are doing your irrigation, always consider the mandibular canal is very near to the tooth. So be confined into the canal. You can use apex locator so that you should not bypass your apex. and your irrigant as well. So in such cases where the mandibular canals are very nearby, if you are placing your irrigant, you are using hypo, it might lead to hypo accident. If you are using your intracanal medicament, might possible, it might leach out from the apex and it might destroy your mandibular canal, your mandibular nerve as well. For your mandibulars, always consider where is the anatomy, where is the mandibular canal, always see the nearby aspect as well. I always advise my students whenever they are doing any endo cases, I always ask them, whenever you're taking radiograph, just take it at least 2 to 3 mm of the periapical region should also be visible whenever you are taking any kind of IOPs. So you can also make it a habit of taking such kind of radiographs. And for maxilla, you can always consider the maxillary sinus is very near to your first molar and your premolars. So always consider, always try just to confine your file, your working length, your intracanal medicament, whatever you are using, it should be inside the apex. In endo, anything beyond apex is a sin. So please just respect the anatomy, the natural anatomy, what all things the God has given to us. See, the next thing that you have to consider is, if you will see the 7, it is slightly tilted in comparison to your 6. So for this 7, if you are using, whenever you are doing this IOP, you have taken this IOP, now you know your 7 is slightly tilted. So whenever you are using your erotor for making an excess cavity, use your erotor according to the angulation of the tooth. If you're going to use your erotor, your burr, in the straight way, so definitely you are going to land up in perforation. Always check for the angulation of the tooth and prepare your excess cavity according to the angulation of the tooth. In this case, if you're going to do it in the straight way, here it is going to get perforated. So always consider the anatomy, the angulation of the tooth as well. Then my favorite, the 6th one is isolation. Always consider doing endo in isolation, like using rubber dam. Rubber dam is one of my favorite topics. So I can talk about rubber dam from morning to evening. But yes, rubber dam is one of the most important equipments that you should definitely have in your operatory. So a good endo comes with a good isolation. Without isolation, endo is nothing. Believe me, without good isolation, endo is nothing. It is actually nothing. For your pre-endo buildups, for your irrigation, for your cleaning and shaping, for everything, for your obturation, for everything, isolation is must. And that too under rubber dam. And one more benefit that over the period of time that I have realized as a practitioner, whenever I'm doing root canal treatment, I'm a person who talks a lot. I'm a storyteller and I just love to listen stories from the people also. But when it comes to work, when it comes to RCT, I don't want to listen to any of the patient's question. I don't want to answer anything when I'm working. My file is inside the patient's mouth. So for me, rubber dam works like anything. I just place the rubber dam. There is no questions from the patient. Patient can't ask me anything. You can ask me anything before I'm very patient otherwise. You can just ask me anything before the treatment or after the treatment. But during my treatment, other than for isolation, other than harm prevention, my to-do thing is isolation. Just keep the rubber dam in the place and patient is not going to ask you any kind of questions. So you should consider isolation under rubber dam in endo. The 7th one is one of the slightly neglected topic, compromised access. Whenever you are thorough with your diagnosis and then you come across a patient which has a restricted mouth opening, it has a compromised access. So just see to it whether your skills allows you to do such kind of cases or not. Because in restricted mouth opening, we just see a decayed tooth. We think like, okay, it needs root canal treatment. I know how to do a good root canal treatment. And we are like, okay, yeah, we will do the root canal treatment for you. Now patient has come to our operatory and now we have to do the root canal. But the patient mouth opening is so restricted that I can't even place my erotor inside the patient's mouth. So Rather than keeping my burr straight, I might keep my burr because it is a compromised opening. My burr's that direction will change and it might lead to perforation or some other kind of harm. So just check for there are options, like you do have different options, like you can use CM files, you can use bite blocks, you can use rubber dam. There are methods to do such kind of cases also, but until and unless you are skilled enough, are experienced enough to deal with such kind of cases, please don't go about it. Then eighth factor is motivation. Don't try to motivate the patient. You can inform the patient that your teeth is compromised. Yes, you should go for a root canal treatment, but please don't try to motivate him. Please don't try to force him to go for the treatment, because by end of the day, there are patients who have psychological issues. So by the end of the day, even if you have done an excellent job, you have done everything, a very good root canal cleaning and shaping, very good irrigation, everything you have considered, your root canal, your final obturation radiograph is also perfect, but psychologically, patient is always going to have a psychological pain. So whenever you are dealing with such kind of patients, don't try to force them. You can motivate them, you can inform them, you just tell them why saving a tooth is important, but don't try to push them or don't try to force them to undergo a root canal treatment. Then the ninth one, and the most neglected one, always ask yourself, don't make it an issue of your ego. So always ask yourself, do I have the necessary skill, experience, and equipment to do this case? Always ask yourself. If not, call a specialist. There is no harm and there is no shame in calling a specialist. I'm an endodontist. There are times when I need a perio opinion. Just go about it. I'm not a specialist in perio. I don't know the periodontal things. They have spent so many years just to study about that particular structure. Obviously, they have more knowledge than me in that particular topic. So I should go for a perio opinion as well. It can be any, like it is not just endo. It is about all the specialities. Whenever I need, I should go for a second opinion with an expert. Okay. And just see to it whether you have the necessary skill to deal with the case. Don't go for a herodontics. Don't make it an ego issue, like, oh, I can't do this case, I can do this case. Don't experiment with the patient in your clinical practice, in your private practice. In colleges, yes, you can try, because there are teachers, there are professors to guide you, but never do such things in your private practice. If you don't have necessary skills, just call a specialist before starting the case. Just assess it, whether I can do this case, whether I can touch this case or not, because at times, if we don't have the necessary skills, we just spoil the case and then we call the specialist. Then it is even more difficult for the specialist to handle up the case. So rather than reaching to that level, just try to just judge yourself, just ask yourself this question: do I have the necessary skill to do this case? If yes, go ahead. If no, call a specialist. Then experience. See, endo or any other specialty, anything, at one point of time, everything was new for me also, for you also. So with time, you will gain experience. You will know how to deal up with the cases. But before that, please just learn to practice in extracted teeth. Just learn in your college. If you want to do some experiments, please do it in the college, because there are people to guide you. Once you are thorough with it, please go ahead, go about the case. Then equipments. See, if you have necessary skills, you have necessary experience, when you are going for a consultation, you can carry both with you. I can carry my skills, I can carry my experience, but if I don't have the necessary equipments, because at times there are cases where there might be a case of instrument separation. For instrument separation, we need some proper equipments. We need microscope. We need our endodontic loops. We need some few extra instruments, ultrasonic tips, and few other instruments also for removal of that instrument. If I don't have I have the proper equipment, why should I touch that teeth? I don't have any right to touch that teeth if I don't have the proper equipment. So don't go about it if you don't have the proper equipment as well. So for me, it is just a small list that I have prepared by myself. What I think, like if such kind of cases is there, please call a specialist or somebody who has better skills. Even for endo, I don't know the entire endo. There might be few things which I am also not very good at. If I'm not, I know like, okay, this is not my forte, I will definitely call some other endodontist and I will ask that endodontist to please see up to this case, look up to this case. So the first one is for me, it is C-shaped canal. If it is a C-shaped canal, please call some expert. If it is a retreatment case itself means it is already failed a few times or at least one times, minimum one times. So for retreatment cases also, you can go for a second opinion or you just ask for some endo, some expert help. Then resorption cases. Resorption cases itself has a very questionable prognosis. So resorption cases has to be dealt with someone who has expertise in it. Then developmental anomaly. Majority of the cases, what we see in our clinics, 70 to 80% cases, yes, you can deal with yourself. So if you feel like some development anomaly is there which you can't handle, just call somebody who can handle it well. Then complex anatomy cases, there are cases like suppose mandibular bicuspids are there. So for mandibular bicuspids, there are chances of multiple canals. There might be 3 canals, there might be 4 canals. There are times like it has been reported in literature, like there was a mandible, for bicuspid, there were 5 canals was there. So if some complex anatomy you're suspecting it has some complex anatomy, so yeah, obviously call somebody who is expert in it. Then complex diagnosis, anything that is having combines 2 or 3 specialities, for me it has a complex diagnosis. If I need a periodontal help, whether I want to know whether crown lengthening can be done for this case or not, I should go for a periodontal help and I should take a periodontal advice. Then immature tooth. If you're not good with open apex cases, because now these days like we practice apexogenesis and apexification very commonly. So if you're not good enough with handling such kind of cases, again, go with an expert. Then large periopical lesion. If you are suspecting the periopical lesion is huge, it is very large in size, then you should go for a second opinion because it might be a cyst or maybe something, some other underlying disease or something underlying or some other pathology or something else. So always go for a second opinion as well. You can just go ask for your endodontist, your oral surgeons. You just go about it. So here come like this is so thank you for I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me for this lecture. And I hope this presentation was actually for everyone. What I saw was people, BDS, some specialists, everyone was there in this platform. So I just tried to confine everything. So anything that you want to ask, I'm open for the questions now. So if anything that you want to ask, you can ask me now.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Dr.
Actually,
Akash.
Vishaka, my audio, I think I'm not your audio is not, I can't listen to you. Can you just text me?
Yeah, sure.
So I have a question here by Dr. Akash. Can you just tell me the systematic way for IOPA interpretation? Okay, so whenever you are going for an IOPA interpretation, rather you go from top to bottom or bottom to top. So you just start with your coronal region. Start with the coronal region. Whether the caries is involving enamel, dentine, pulp, whether it is approaching pulp or not. So there is an incident I would like to share with you. There was one of my cousin. He was having severe pain And he just called me and he's like, okay, okay, you are a dentist and see, I'm having this much of pain. You are just useless for me. And see, there is nothing working for me. I'm having so much of pain and you're a dentist and you are not helping me. So see, sitting so far, so I was like, okay, do one thing, just go to a nearby dentist and tell me like what your dentist is saying. So he went to a doctor and then he called me back and he's like, he's asking me for the root canal treatment, and he already had some past traumatic experience with some other dentist. So he's like, I don't want to go for a root canal treatment again. You just do something, but I don't want a root canal treatment again. And he sent me a IOPA. So in that IOPA, I was what according to my experience, I was like, why root canal treatment? We can save that teeth. And I just asked him, okay, whenever you are visiting my city, just come to me and just show me like what exactly what problem you are facing. So he came up with me. I took a IOPA and I just asked him for a few questions like, okay, when you're having pain, what kind of pain it is, what is the duration of your pain, and what I thought, like what was my doubt, it was exactly correct. He just had sensitivity. He was just feeling a sensitivity with sugar, with sweet and cold. That's it. And in IOPA, the caries was just near to pulp. It is not, it didn't reached pulp. It was just 2 mm or 1.5 mm away from the pulp. So it was not a case for a root canal treatment. It was just a case of deep caries management. In such cases, you can just remove the carious lesion, just place a layer of Dicel, just do a good restoration, and your tooth is good to go. So don't just rush up for your root canal treatment or anything. Just read up your IOPA. Just whenever you are starting with the IOPA, just see to it. Just check for the coronal portion first. Check for the enamel dentine pulp. What is the extent of the carious lesion? How much dentine is left? Then just check for the root. Just check for the pedal widening. Is there any pedal widening is there? Just check. If any bone resorption is there, if bone resorption is there, then we have to go for bone, if some bone resorption or some periapical root resorption is there, then definitely we have to change our treatment protocol as well. So just check for the root resorption, or if any bone resorption is also there, any pedal widening is there. Pedal widening is there means now periodontal involvement is also there. Then don't forget to check the adjacent tooth. Always check for a adjacent tooth. The bone loss, just check for the adjacent tooth. Just compare the bone that is present in relation to that tooth and the adjacent tooth. How much amount of bone loss is there? If the bone loss is there, is it following a pattern? Like I showed you in vertical root fractures, there is a radiolucency, there was a pattern, there was a vertical bone loss there. So you can always check for the vertical bone loss also there. You can check for a J-shaped radiolucency. In most of the vertical root fractures, there is a J-shaped radiolucency there. So you can always check for that one also. Then if periapically there is a huge periapical lesion, just check for a cystic line. If it is a cyst, there is definitely going to be a lining there. If it is just an abscess, mostly there won't be any lining. It is going to be a diffuse kind of a radiolucency there. It's actually a huge topic. Is again going to take 1 more hour. I will just take you up to the next second question. So the next question is from Dr. Priya. So what about detecting cracks in posterior? How can we diagnose it? See, Dr. Priya, actually, these days we always go for magnification. First thing is, I would suggest all of you to buy loupes and start practicing under loupes, or at least minimum loupes. Or if possible, you can start up with your microscopes as well. So you can just check with it. If when you are wearing loupes, most of the times what is not visible from the naked eyes, you can see everything with the help of your loupes or your microscope. Then you can always use a transillumination device. We do have transillumination devices with us. So you can invest on that thing, or otherwise you can just take your light cure unit. You can just keep it on the lingual aspect. If you're checking for the mandible lingual aspect, if you're checking for the maxillary, then you can just place it on the maxillary tooth and just see to it if any light is passing through it or not. If there are cracks, there is going to be obstructions, and you will be able to see, it will be like visible. If there is there are cracks present there or not. There is one more way. And one more way how you can check it is, if you don't have any transillumination device also, you don't are not trusting your light cure unit, you want to check it by some other way for your confirmation, then you can also check with the help of the dyes. So there is something called as methylene blue dye. You can just apply that methylene blue dye and you can just wait for some time. If there are cracks there, so that cracks will be quite evident after you're placing your dye. So you can check likewise also. So there is one more question. Tips or tricks for C-shaped canals. It is by Dr. Harsh. So for C-shaped canals, first of all, you have to be very thorough with the anatomy. Just check for it. If possible for your C-shaped canals, if you want, you can just go ahead with your CBCT. First of all, if you're suspecting in your normal IOPs, in your RVGs or your conventional IOPs, if you're suspecting the tooth is having C-shaped canal, then you can always go with a CBCT to actually know the anatomy of the C-shaped canal. Then whenever you are going with the C-shaped canal, the files that we are using, they are just meant for the oval or your round canals. It is not meant for the C-shaped canals. So here we have to be dependent on more of irrigation. So what you can do is, if the C shape is completely, it is following the trend from coronal to the apical region. So you can just do a circumferential filing along the walls, completely like this in the walls. And then we have to be dependent on irrigation more rather than on our shaping part. We have to be focused more on the cleaning part. So you should always go about, you should always be more, you have to be more dependent on that. And then for obturation, obviously we can't do a single cone obturation, or we can't be, you can go with a cold little compaction, you can go for it. And if you have flowable GP, then yes, flowable GP, thermoplast size GP, that you have to go about it. So C-shaped canal is there. If it is manageable, and you do have skills, you manage in your clinic, or otherwise I would suggest you to better, if possible, just refer that case for some secondary centers and just let the specialist do the thing. Okay, then one more question I got is diagnosis in pediatric patients. For pediatric patients, I think again, I'm not the right one to answer all these questions because I'm not a periodontist. That's why I took endo. So diagnosis periodontics, then you have to rely more on your parent rather than the kid, because kid is not going to tell you for how long the pain is there. Kids will tell, but up to a certain age. If the kid is quite small, then better you have to be dependent on the parents' word rather than the kid. And I'm not the right person to tell you about the diagnosis in the pediatric patients. I'm not the what to say. I'm not the right person actually. Any other questions?
No, ma'am, I guess we are done with the questions.
I
Hello.
think this is the last question. If any other questions are there, and we are open for the discussion. So it would be great if we can have one-to-one conversation.
Hello.
I think that's it. So Dr. Vishaka, you can just take the stage.
Hello.
I think Akash Chauhan, okay, there's a question how to check cracked tooth syndrome clinically. I already told you can check with the help of, we have translimiting devices. If you don't have, then you can use loupes, microscope. Then if you don't have such expensive equipment, you can always you can use methylene blue dye, or if you don't want to use that also, you can use your light cure tip. And with light cure tip, you can just see about the cracks like from the palatal surface or your lingual surface, you just have to pass the light. And from the buccal aspect, you can see to it whether any crack lines are visible there or not. Any other questions?
I guess we are done with the questions, ma'am. Hello. 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 Ma'am, am I audible? Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I guess we are done with the questions also. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights with us. It was a very basic yet very important topic, which will help us in treating for the outcome of the patient. Treatment outcome of the patient will be better if we have like better case selection and diagnosis for the same. And thank you for patiently answering to all the questions of the participants. Now, I would like to actually thanking to all the participants for being a part of this knowledgeable sharing experience. And I guess this is done. Thank you so much. And stay tuned for our upcoming webinars also. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarita Bhandari, for the insightful lecture on case selection and diagnostic trends in access opening. Your expertise and knowledge were truly valuable. Looking forward to more such enlightening sessions.